Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you're joining us from. It's so nice to have you with us today. We have a rich conversation ahead on the topic of self-coaching, and I am really looking forward to exploring it with Romy and Smita. But before that, I just wanted to quickly mention two things, which is that at Coacharya, some of you would be aware that we run coach training programs, and there really is something for everyone. So whether you're someone who is just beginning to explore coaching or you want to scale up, we have a pathway for you. So do take a moment after today's session to explore what we offer. I think you might find something that speaks to you. I will leave the links in the chat box for you to take a look at. I also want to mention that today's webinar sits within the broader space of leadership, which is very close to our heart at Coacharya. A lot of our work is in leadership development, systemic thinking, and team coaching. So if you are a part of an organization that's investing in any of these areas, we'd genuinely love to have a conversation about how we might work together. Please do reach out to us. I will leave all the details in the chat box and you can reach out to us. All right, with that, let's get into the good stuff. Smita, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yamini. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Some familiar faces. Hi, Kathleen. Seeing you after a long time. Shivali, Krish. Thank you so much for tuning in. A very warm welcome to this webinar. This is a conversation, right? We are no experts of anything. We're just going to talk about how self-coaching has really helped us and is still helping us. So today with me in conversation is Romy. Romy is working with an organization called YouGov, and she's a coach, a mom, and someone who believes deeply in both mental and physical fitness. Hi, Romy.
Hello, Smita. Hi. Hi, everyone.
All right, so let's get started. And, as coaches, one thing we always start with is a reflective question, right? So today, as you're coming to this room with whatever thoughts, I want to check with you, what are you curious about today? And feel free to put your comments on the chat box. Any one word that comes to your mind to show that you're curious. And what are you curious about?
Smita, hi, could you repeat I lost the internet for a moment. If you could repeat the question, please.
As you're joining in today, what are you bringing with yourself as a curious question? Given the topic is inner edge of self-coaching. Possibilities to explore. Okay. How to recognize edges earlier. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Romy, are you able to see the chat?
Yes, I'm reading. All of them are very interesting.
Yeah. How to keep oneself accountable with self-coaching.
Good one.
Wow. How do you measure you're becoming a better person?
How to move through self-coaching plateaus.
I mean, that question is so interesting, right? How do you measure?
Yeah.
Who else other than you, your own self, to measure?
How are you defining self-coaching? How can self-coaching help in actual coaching? Wow. Okay. How is it different from supervision? Yeah. Beautiful question indeed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. So welcome everyone joining in now. We were just reflecting along in terms of, as you read the topic for today, inner edge of self-coaching, what are you curious about today? And coaches here, leaders here are typing in. So whoever has joined in just now, feel free to type into the chat box. All right. So while we are getting more, responses here on the chat, today, as I mentioned earlier, is not about any lecture. It's just a conversation between two coaches. You're really going to listen to us and be becoming vulnerable and sharing some honest moments in those times where we were not coaching ourselves. It was a conversation with self, and we were trying to help ourselves, but you will hear as to what we were doing then. The theme for today is moving from knowing better to living better. Right? So all of us here, with all our experiences of life, with the education, with the knowledge, relationships, all of that, we already know a lot. The question really is, are we living to what we are knowing? Now, moving on with this conversation today, Romy. So the first question for us to explore is, let's go back in time, right? And I know you are from an army family, and army sounds, like it would be very structured, discipline, and all of that. And then you stepped into civilian life, marriage, and then all that. Now, what changed for you?
Yeah, that's a good one, Smita. I think going back to that lens. And so, army life, as all of us know, is very structured. Your career moves are also very limited. You either want to go to army, and you have not really seen the civilian life. There is a particular time you have your dinner, the particular time you wake up. You have only few possibilities that you see inside a shell. It's like living in a shell, right? So and of course I also wanted to go to the army. I did try, but then somewhere when I saw the civilian life, I was just tempted, because that was a life which was not so structured. And as they say, you get attracted to something that you've been doing forever. You just want to try something else. I thought, okay, let me try this world. But for the longest, I actually struggled. I struggled because it was a very different world, where in army I was always thinking that, okay, let me do this, try this. There were less resources. Civilian life had a lot of resources, but the language was very different. There was no structure. There was a lot of chaos. So I had to actually go through a lot in that sense. And a lot of time those crashes really happened when I thought, like, do I really belong? So a lot, identity crisis happened. I was feeling very off the room all the time. So a lot of questioning internally. Am I good enough? Am I cut out for this? A constant self-doubt that, I'm not, oh my God, I'm not able to handle this particular life. And how am I going to survive? So I was honestly living a lot on the performance angle, that let me perform, so that I somewhere feel belong. So that kind of a atmosphere actually I grew up with. So that was the thing that I actually went through. Yeah.
Mhm.
And also, like, right? So I think, so I belong to Bihar. So that was another, story where, in Bihar, especially patriarchal society, women were not supposed to like speak loud or, express themselves or be assertive. So that environment in itself is very suppressing. So I was actually being attacked from two sides, from a structure to a chaos life, and a Bihari women in in the corporate. So that was a big bummer for me when I entered. Yeah.
Yeah. And all, our coaches and leaders here who are not part of India, Bihar is a state in India which came with a taboo in itself. And I come from the same state, and that's why Romy and I resonate with this taboo so much, that once you move out of that state, people, the moment you see that, they come to know that you're from that state, there is already a judgment that they associate with you. So coming back to Romy, your story about that time, right? Like that shift from that structured life to the life that you chose for yourself. What was the conversation you were having with yourself back then?
Oh, I did not really know, honestly. I did not know what was happening with me because I was just running. It was just like running in various directions, which would just make me feel part of the game. So I was running even without thinking which direction I was going on. And they say when you are rowing against the flow, you're pushing so much harder, right? So I felt exhausted. I was always feeling that, oh my God, the judgment is coming from somewhere. I would be always thinking judgment was coming any which ways from the external world, but inner world was also screwed when I was really thinking that judging myself all the time. There was a fear of failure constantly. What if I fail? And I was constantly operating in a survival mode. So I feel the entire scenario was very exhausting for me when I was at my peak capacity. When I would have done a lot of more better thinking, I was actually exhausted thinking, judging myself.
Yeah. So judgment, fear, survival. I hear these three strong, powerful words.
Yeah.
And I know, most of you here in the room would resonate. Maybe, not exactly with the boss and the toxic relationship, but any other, relationship in which we feel that we were undermined in that relationship, right? Like credit is just taken just like that, and everything felt like, we are constantly judging ourselves and saying, am I too sensitive? Am I doing it enough? Maybe, I have to do something more to prove myself. Maybe what I'm doing is not enough. And if at all the thought comes that, I will raise my voice or make a point there to make a space for myself, the fear of losing the job, the fear of, not being able to stand up for myself. And then there is this survival technique that just uh, quickly and very smoothly just comes in, which says, it's okay, maybe the person is like that and we can't do much about it. Or let's go for a drive, everything will be okay. Or let's just eat an ice cream and just feel better. So we just find some survival methods to manage in the moment. And when I just think about myself, I think I just was asking myself that question, that how do I get through this?
Yeah.
What I lacked was the second question, which would have been more powerful back then, to say, what is this really telling me, or what is this really showing me? What am I learning from what I'm observing? So when I look back at that period, and I so resonate with these three words, Romy, that you said, fear, survival and judgment. I have seen this multiple times, in my conversations as well.
Yeah. Do you have I would love to hear your experience as well. Like, when did you really feel this?
Yeah, so this relationship with a toxic boss is where I am just reflecting on this, and it just comes to me, flashing in front of me in terms of what I was going through back then. And now, as I'm just also thinking of that time, what I really feel for all of us, the antidote for this is just awareness, right? Had I just known that just naming some of this would really help me, then it would have been like a different way to manage. So there is a thought there, and then you kind of distance yourself with that thought, right? So you're not the thought anymore, and you are just becoming a witness and noticing.
Yeah, that's so well said. Actually, you are not the thought you're witnessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Smita, like here, I feel um, we were conditioned not to label our feelings as well, right? I feel somewhere, like you said, that our parents, whenever we said, I'm feeling low, our parents said that go have an ice cream, or eat something, you'll feel better, or sleep. So they never taught us that how are you feeling and how do you label your feeling? So when you don't really know how you're feeling, how are you supposed to work on them?
Audience, I'm sure, as you're listening us reflect on our stories, your own stories are also coming to your, memory. And with that, I would like to ask all of you here a question, a funny question. If there is a race, okay, and the race is on ruminating, what medal will you give yourself? Gold, silver, bronze? Please type in your answers on the chat.
Yeah, you can just write the words, or you can actually find the medal if you can find with the smiley. We'd love to hear that. Yes, there is platinum too. Yes, the question, I'll just repeat the question. If there was a medal for ruminating or overplaying your conversations or overthinking in your head, what medal will you give yourself?
The cycle of there is a response.
I think I'm definitely gold.
Yeah,
The
me too.
over, the
We all
overthinking.
are, right? Bronze, Nazima? Okay. Gold, bronze, silver.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm actually en route and hence I can't type. Is that okay? I just wanted to chime in and say I'll give it the highest possible medal.
Oh,
And yeah, incidentally, I've brought this up in one or two coaching sessions for myself. So I'm very, I mean, it's a topic that's very close to my heart.
Yeah.
thanks, Purnima. Thanks. Good
Yeah.
to hear.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And absolutely, it's good to off and on, even if you're MCC in the room here, having a coaching conversation really helps.
Yeah. Kohinoor diamond, Meher. So we believe that all of us are winners when it
Yes.
comes to ruminating and overthinking
Yeah.
or playing the
Even
conversation.
if it's a bronze, it's a medal for us. All right. So moving forward, Romy, I had a chat with you before this webinar, and something that you shared very personal, right? And I know it's a vulnerable point for you, but really, growth comes from sharing our vulnerabilities and a safe space like this. So I would like to, invite you to share the story you shared with me, that, from the time things were different for you, that breaking point.
Yeah.
for you.
Yes. I'm happy to share with the group here because I know how self-coaching basically can help you. So therefore, I want to share a real story here. For me, that point really came in when my life was actually in pieces. I was laid off my job. It was not a performance issue, but the business took that call. In 2017. 2018, I went through a miscarriage. It was a really hard miscarriage where I was not home. I was alone dealing with everything. Um, and I was in a very demanding job, which actually needed me to send the deliverables by 12 in night. And there were a lot of things already happening with me personally as well. And I don't know, I hope no one goes through that, but miscarriage makes you really self-blame and feel that maybe you did something wrong. You keep questioning yourself that, why was I not able to carry the baby? What did I do? So you always blame yourself. So for me, a job loss followed by by the loss of this unborn baby, and then really difficult scenarios at workplace because I was any which way struggling with finding my place and belonging, right? So I am this person who is a team player. I love people. I love to be with them, really nurture them. But I was not in a very right place, and the miscarriage happened at the same place. So I was in a very, I was very angry, honestly, and I did not process it very well. I just left the work where I was, and I just traveled. I went to Leh Ladakh. I actually lived there for some 20 days. And there the reflection really happened that what was I really doing? I was actually living in the survival mode. I was always thinking, what's wrong with me? The self-worth was shaken because of this episode where a job did not accept me, an unborn child did not accept me, a new office, which was a high performing role. I was good at it. I was not accepted there. I just felt that something is really wrong with me. And I'll be honest, I actually um, had thoughts where I thought like, do I really deserve to live? So it was a very tough phase. But when I come back from Leh Ladakh, with that clarity of mind, when I saw nature so much, when I saw kids around, and these people who are so playful and pure, they will just like whosoever you meet, they will say Jule. So Jule is like in Ladakhi language, you say hello, Jule. So I just came back with that word, like, let me say hello to life, Jule. So it was just that point came in with me, a lot of realization, and I realized that in those 20 days, the concept of working on self, and self in a way, not that you are blaming yourself, but you are accepting yourself and moving from there. So that's something which really clicked for me from that trip and the experience that I went through.
I have goosebumps listening to you, Romy. This clearly shows that you made a choice to move out from where you were, and you were choosing to see something new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that newness is where the word Chile. So it clearly looks like, the listening was to your own self. Yeah. While you were listening to everything, maybe in the environment, but in that moment where you kind of stayed alone, something changed in the way that you were listening.
Yes. 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 I think the listening, really started. So, what really happened when I was living alone is that I was not performing for a job, for a family, for a partner. I was not performing for anybody but for myself. And in that moment, somewhere I was listening myself carefully and with a whole heart, which I was not doing earlier, right? Because I was trying to be up for everyone else. I was thinking, oh, let me be a good wife, let me be a good daughter-in-law, daughter, an employee, let me just crack this. And I was just not myself. And when I started to listen to myself, I feel there that awareness really kicked in that, oh, my life is beyond just performing.
Life is beyond performing. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Romy. This is really very, very inspiring. And it also gives, a nudge to us to say that whenever we have such instances where we feel if life is worth living, then there is an antidote for that. And can we tap into those resources and capture those antidotes? Coming to our topic for today, which is self-coaching, and all of us at Coacharya, we strongly believe in in self-coaching, which even while the coach training starts, we always ask our learners to pick up a goal for yourself, and while they're getting trained as a coach, work on themselves with that topic. Yeah. So self-coaching is something which we definitely inspire everyone to continue as a practice. But coming to, to really simplify for us and be on the same page when we're talking about self-coaching, do you want to define as to what self-coaching is?
Yeah.
I know you've been like a big taker of this from your coaching journey.
Yes. So self-coaching is basically a setup where you are the coach and you are the client.
As simple.
Very simple. You are the coachee, as you know, some people who are non-coaches here would not really understand the client as a terminology because we know it later. But you are the coachee, you are the coach. And honestly, that's the most difficult coaching conversation that you can have because it's tough to be with yourself. So, for example, how many times people say that, look at yourself in the mirror and say something. It's so uncomfortable, right? Like even if we imagine that we are in front of the mirror and if I have to say I'm beautiful, we just can't say because it's tough. So similarly, the self-coaching setup is the hardest session or sessions you'll have with yourself, where you are the coachee and you are the client.
Yeah. So, just as a matter of coincidence, one of my cohort member, she has been looking for a client for submission and she could not find a client. And yesterday night she reached out. I don't know if she's there in this room today. She reached out saying, would you be okay to be a client? And I said, yes, I have something really burning and I would like to offer myself. So I've been struggling with journaling for a while now, and something which I have done it for years now because I feel fulfilled. I feel evolved when I'm journaling because if I'm, just going through the pages, I see myself, learning and growing and stuff. And then I was just telling her that, when I see few blank pages out there in my journal, I don't know who I was on those days. I don't know what did I do that day. And that makes me really very shallow, and I'm a coach. I'm preaching coaching. I'm training people to become coaches. And here you go. Sorry, there is a power cut. It'll be back. But
Okay, we can hear you.
yeah. So it is only through that, while I'm just working on myself as a coach, but only through that conversation, it gave me an insight that, there are days which are dark. There are days which is, I'm not up to my expectation as to how I want to see me as. And I was not enjoying reading all of that anymore. That is the shift which happened, in conversation with the coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're saying is so true. I mean, it is so hard. Self-coaching at all times would not work if, we really don't practice it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, like taking the accountability of that schedule where you sit with yourself and self-coach, that's so hard because you are accountable to yourself, and it's so easy to take yourself lightly, right? If you promise to the client, you will make sure that you go for a session and you just do it, right? But it's so tough to schedule it for yourself and be on track because, yeah, like, okay, fine, like I'll do it tomorrow. Or maybe, it's just easy. So, but it's also one of the most rewarding things, as you just mentioned, right? That you see yourself evolving through the pages.
Yes. To go deep within, and I think, the connotation around listening that we had for ages was so different, right? Like we always were taught to listen, to respond, not really to discover yourself. That was not how of course, we've picked up that and we are practicing it. And what is your, association with listening?
Hmm. Uh, so listening, actually, the concept came to me very strongly only when I did my own coaching. But I realized that we took listening such a superficial skill. Like, our parents also told, teachers told in the class that listen carefully. But how to listen beyond? to yourself. Like sometimes listening carefully is just not helping. You need to move beyond what is your body telling you, what's a particular person telling you. I use this all the time in my sales skill as well. So I'm a sales leader at YouGov, and I improved my performance just by listening better, for example, because if a client tells me I don't have the budget,
Mm.
earlier me would just shut up and I'll just move. But then I started realizing later that, okay, fine, if you don't have the budget at all, then what really made you have a conversation with me earlier?
Mm.
So that, I just really know where are they coming from. And honestly, I have carved out the budgets by starting with those conversations and listening to them more than what they were just telling me. So maybe they were ignoring me, but and it's very normal in sales, right? People will ignore you. You really have to be thick-skinned. But honestly, what really helped me was listening when this person really thought that I am interested to listen to him and trying to solve something for him. So the game changed there. I feel the listening definition changed for me there.
Mm. So I'm also hearing that in order for you to listen differently there are, some prejudgments that we have, right? Somebody talking about, and then there is no, we are actually just cutting the scope for a conversation there because the judgments have already kicked in.
Correct. You're right. You're right. Exactly. And yeah, I think that's so well said, Smita. Like all of us are so judgmental without even knowing. Like we say that we are non-judgmental, but when people are speaking to us or we are speaking to somebody, if they say something, we take them for their words. We are not really understanding that what all could go in their minds when they say that. So
Mm.
well said. That one, I really agree with you there.
Yeah. And of course, now being on the other side, now that Romy, you and many others here, all of us, after having gone through a formal, structured, way of coaching and learning coaching, things appear and, are different. Now, and all thanks to the core competencies, right? I know, like my favorite is definitely about evoking awareness and aligning with, the agreement. So in a conversation, we most of the time when we are talking about listening and presence, the question really is that what are we listening to? Where are we putting our energies when we are saying active listening? Yeah. What is your favorite competency?
For me, maintaining presence. I feel presence for yourself. When you're listening to
Mm.
yourself, are you with yourself? Like a lot of times, how we analyze the clients, right? When I do my sales, then I am constantly evaluating whether this person is with me. I am maintaining my presence and I'm trying to calculate that. Similarly, when I am with myself, am I maintaining my presence? Am I really accepting of my thoughts? Am I really listening to all my parts? Maybe some part of me is really blaming myself or it's critical about who I am, but the other part is which is really appreciative of how far I have come. Am I listening to both of them? Am I accepting them? I feel maintaining presence as a tool and competency. I feel that's a real competency that has helped me. And also listen, of course. Listen and maintaining presence is something that's very close to my heart. I think those are really helped me, not just being a person, but also in my sales career and the way I lead with clients, lead my teams. Um, how do I maintain presence with them? When I'm talking to them, am I really listening to them properly? I think these skills have helped me to be a better person.
Mhm. And also, it you said it also showed impact in the actual sales.
Oh, yes, of course. Like, I feel I can call myself terrible at sales, maybe. Maybe I was someday. I was really I was not doing as per my capacity. I always felt I deserved to do more because I had it in me. But I was, as I mentioned, right, because with the clients, I was not listening properly. I was just listening to the data, which was, I was listening to the data, but I was not really finding the insight in it. But with this competency understanding, actually, I can safely say since past 2 years, quarter on quarter, I have overachieved. Not just achieved, I've overachieved because I've really understood the dynamics and started understanding people in a better sense. I've started understanding that leadership is not about controlling, but it's about your awareness. If you are aware, you will infuse that awareness in your team members as well. So I think all of these bits really helped me to not just be a better leader, but also nurturing future leaders in my team.
Amazing. So it's like, the triggers outside, they don't change, right? The
Yes.
triggers are just the same. What changes is really in the way we respond to those triggers.
Yeah, you're so right about that. Yeah. Yeah, because that's how I don't know, I have felt it so many times, and I want to know from you as well that maybe the boss you were cribbing about still is the same, but you change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, the external we know remains the same, but the relationship is not with the external. The relationship is really with the self, empathetic, of course, towards the outside, but really knowing that, you have the power to respond in the way that you would like to. So again, an example from me. So I was really triggered by a WhatsApp message I received from a person, which to me felt very rude. The message to me felt very rude. I was just sitting with that message, thinking as to what was that person going through to be sending a message like this. And then I was constantly, just thinking as to where is this coming from? Like how we ruminate and, we keep asking ourselves and keep asking questions, which is similar in the similar direction. There is no newness in the question. You're in the same direction asking question where you're not getting any new answer. So I just showed it to my mentor and I said, I received this message. What do you think of this message? And the mentor said, it's fine. It's fine. It's just fine. If I would have received this question, I would have also reacted in this way. I'm like, oh wow, both of us are reading the same question and the response, and you are feeling different and I'm feeling different. And then he said, maybe that the question that you asked, it could have been followed with another question and then it could have landed. And from that time, I'm just thinking that why didn't that point come to my mind? So even now, like even after having so many coaching conversations, after so much of self-coaching, these small little conversations with your mentors and peers and all of that are profound. Because as soon as the mentor said that, I'm just thinking in those lines. Yeah. Anything that triggers anything else that you would like to share here before we really move into that space where we are talking about, we got trained and then we are continuing with the process of self-coaching. Anything else that you would want to share here, Romy?
Just one small thing that what self-coaching also did when that inflection point came for me, and I hear that from a lot of people who are on their self-coaching journey, is that when you start noticing, I think noticing and awareness are the key here, really. When you start noticing your own triggers, your patterns, and I'm a consumer researcher by profession, so I see everything in data. I see everything in data, and then I see, okay, fine, this is my data, this is my information, and how do I what is my insight here? So when you start patterns repeating with yourself, that's your data. That data is telling you something. Your body is saying something, and then you're really analyzing that and then acting on it. So this one thing, that noticing is everything. I just wanted to leave the audience with this thought.
Yeah. I think that's such a powerful point that you said about seeing it as a data that really neutralizes, all other emotions that we attach that data with. Right? The moment you call it as a data, then you know that you have the power in you to manage.
Yes.
For the audience, again, a question, for reflection for us. How many of you have made, ChatGPT and Claude our coach and therapist and all of that? Do you reach out to AI with your questions?
We have a question from Shweta.
Yeah. Where is it on the chat?
Sorry, I was not having question. I was like, I also use ChatGPT for coaching sometimes.
All right.
So, and anyone else? Not as a coach? No, never. Okay, that is good.
Mhm. Or maybe, Smita, we can call it as conversation partner, like not really say
Yeah.
coach or therapist. But
Yeah.
if you're dealing with something, then how often do we really go to Claude and ask, hey, I'm feeling this. What do you think? And then, it throws answers and you're trying to reason with it and you're trying to get to a point where you feel better about yourself. That's the question.
Yeah. So, Romy, while we're having those answers there on the chat, you and I, before you started your journey, and then through mentoring, and after you've completed, you said coach training. Definitely, it felt like a recognition. What changed for you after having gone through the structured, coach training program?
Yeah, yeah. So what structured training program really did was that honestly, I trained because not because I wanted to be coach. I trained because I wanted to be a better leader at YouGov, where I work right now. I really love the organization where I work. They really do meaningful work, and I wanted to be a better leader there. What coaching program really did was that it gave me a different language to speak to myself. The way I was speaking to changed for me. Where I was in self-coaching earlier, I would journal about how I feel and what's really happening with me. Or sometimes, like, even if I'm ranting, if that's my natural behavior, I would rant in journal as well. But coaching gave me a framework. It gave me a framework. It gave me different competencies, um, and the language as to how can I structure my thought. Like, for example, if I'm overthinking continuously, then I listen to myself that what am I overthinking? And is there an evidence against that overthinking? And if there is no evidence, I give myself a timer saying that, hey, listen, enough, just move on. So what a real coaching program gave me was a structure, that how to listen, what tools really to follow there. And I think, Smita, you had some bits there on tools and how it helped you. So would love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course we start really with awareness. And with that awareness that, whatever it is, like that awareness of whether it's a judgment or whether it is a fear, whether it is we are using it for survival purposes. So allowing that in us, recognizing that, it is a judgment, recognizing that there is fear, and then reflecting on it and anchoring before we take any action. So I, very strongly believe in these 4 words about the 4 A's that I say, which is awareness, allow, anchor, and action. With this framework, what really happens to me is one really about, when um, we don't, there was a time where there was no awareness, right? Like there is a trigger, there is a reaction, and immediately there is an action. So with this structure, after the awareness, to allowing that awareness.
Yeah.
And that when I use the word allow, it really gives me to say that everything is welcome here. Everything is just welcome to creep in. And what are the methods in which we anchor and then take very, conscious actions? So the actions is something which, of course, awareness to action is the journey. If there is no action, there is no change that we can expect any which ways. So, and most of the time, I think for whatever reason, what gets dropped is the action. But to expect any change in the way we would want for ourselves, action is the key.
Yeah. Well said. And yeah, you're right. Even if one step goes missing from the 4 A's, our framework is not as efficient when we are self-coaching.
So the most important shift, I think both of us, and I'm sure all coaches and leaders listening here are also reflecting along, saying the most important relationship we ever need to manage is with our own selves. Everything else after that just flows from there. In order to, for all of you, again, another question for reflection is, what is in your experience, and now as we are sharing our story and your reflection, what is that one thing in you that you, through this conversation with self, you've managed? What is that one thing that you have managed in yourself? If anybody wants to quickly, share, we can unmute, or you can unmute yourself and share.
For myself, with coaching, self-coaching, I've managed to identify where insecurities guised as trying to help other people actually inhibited myself. And so becoming aware of that first, that I'm not actually trying to help other people, I'm trying to make myself feel comfortable and safe, is actually keeping me in a very narrow, small box within my capacity of like what I'm actually able to achieve. So becoming aware of that was very destabilizing, because I had always viewed myself as a good person. I'm a kind, understanding, empathetic person, but it was really about controlling everyone else's reactions around me so that I felt safe. So that was a huge, it took a long time to get there, but once I understood that, managing the destabilizing space of that, and then creating stability and a foundation for myself that wasn't dependent on how other people around me were reacting and responding, and finding that core within myself to come back to.
So much, Sabrina, that is really powerful.
Shivali has a question too.
Sharing maybe.
Not a question really, but an insight I thought I should share. Well, first and foremost, Romy, big heart, big hug to you for coming out of your scenario, your situation, and sharing that vulnerable space here with us, that particular phase of your life, and coming out as a winner. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Sis, I remember Smita saying yesterday that Shravan Manan Nidhyasan is what one needs to do. And this is something that I have been practicing. So a lot of reflections were coming when you were sharing your part of the story. For me, I have, as a child, I've always talked to myself in the mirror a lot of times. Now I call it as a therapy, talk in front of the mirror therapy, because that is worked for me growing up, finding my own solutions. This one hand distance that I've applied as a kid also, that I will look at things from a distance so as to see whether I'm able to see the right things or not, whether things are working for me or not. So that looking at things from that drishta or saksh bhav was something that has always worked for me, even as a child. I remember that. So doing the transaction analysis part when I was reliving my own script, and I realized that this self-reliance has been so deeply ingrained in me from a very early age that I think that has helped big time. So yeah, but just because of this powerful conversation, that I could go back and touch upon all those parts, that how did I work on my own self in terms of self-reliance. So thank you so much for sharing this space with us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shivali.
Thank you, Shivali. Okay, suddenly what happened? We came in the spotlight towards the end of the conversation.
I did not do anything.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But thank you so much, Sabrina and Shivali, for sharing your thoughts. And also, we see some few other comments here in the chat. Thank you for your responses. Yeah. Are you able to read Feroza's, Romy? There's some interesting
Yes,
point here.
importance of self-care.
Yeah, importance of self-care.
Yes.
Amazing.
We have can't listening has been my weak point. Yeah, self-coaching basically teaches you that. In fact, a coaching framework helps with that. Like how to really, it has tools and techniques which really tells you how to listen deeply.
Amazing, lovely responses here. Thank you for reflecting along with us. All right. So, Romy, just moving forward in our conversation, something that as we are just coming to close to our conversation for today, in terms of Coacharya has this 3C model, which is contract, communicate, conclude, which is very, in a way, like solid but transactional, and that has really helped individuals to, when we're talking about getting into a coaching relationship with the other, these 3 steps really help. And we are saying that just have these 3 for yourself as well. And what is your if at all, in terms of what is that 1 or 2 techniques, through your stories you've definitely shared some techniques, but would you like to name few techniques as to how can we make this work for us?
So I have not personally made, like as in I have not really made a framework of this, but I try to build things on 2 sides. One is on my mental fitness. I call it mental fitness, not the wellness bit, but real fitness, where you work on it like you work on your body. And the second bit is the physical fitness, where the simplest tool is just to hit the gym, and then you see what's really happening. Similarly, with the mental fitness, it's just to sit with a journal, with a paper and pen, um and in fact your tool really helps there, which is of 4 A's, where I get really aware of what I'm feeling. Like for example, even in sales, like let me take an example of sales. So in sales, if my sale is not performing and I am feeling anxious about it, I'm feeling, oh my God, like I have screwed up my next quarter. What do I do now? I actually sit with a framework there and ask myself that, hey, what is the evidence for this? Evidence is that my pipeline is weak right now. Okay, was my pipeline always weak? I go back and look at the data. So again, going back to the data, being a consumer research there, I start looking at the data. That's not true. Oh, fine. Okay, great. So that immediately in the moment, at least I'm feeling my pipeline could be short right now. And that necessarily doesn't mean me not hitting my Q4 numbers or Q3 number or whatever numbers. Then I'm actually going back and checking what really happened in market? Like maybe the market was geopolitical situation was not great. Maybe the clients were not because of that they were shying away from spending. So I'm finding a lot of data. So that's my way of processing because I am a data salesperson, right? So I would be looking at a lot of data, collect data, and see whether the situation where I was worried whether I'll be able to hit my Q4 number because my pipeline was weak. I get evidence of no, my pipeline was not weak. Or if it was weak, why was it weak? So I throw at myself a lot of data and then I move to action from that. I feel, okay, fine. Now, what can I do? What's in my control? So I draw two circles. What is in my control? What's not in my control? And then geopolitical situation, for example, is not in my control. But what's in my control to keep the clients warmed up? And then, how do I warm up? Then I find techniques for those because I'm generally this person who really cares about clients. Like if spending money right now is not in their intention, let it be. Like not that if they're not spending today, they won't spend tomorrow. They will. If I am authentic to myself and them. So I feel the tool for me is a lot of data. So I try to find a lot of evidences in one place and then I analyze them. And then I create some big 5 insights, for example, for myself. And then when I wake up from that chair, journaling all of it, I am already feeling better and confident that I'll be able to do my Q4 again, overachieve my Q4.
Wonderful. So you've created like a small structure for yourself to continue with this process. There's a very interesting question, Romy. What is your take on using AI as a tool for self-coaching?
Oh, that's amazing. And I do it all the time. I do it all the time because, as someone also on the group said, that sometimes you're not able to um, look at different perspectives when it comes to a certain situation. But I have my reservations also with it because different tools act differently. For example, ChatGPT will always tell you, it will always talk to you as a friend. It will tell you, no, you did right. That person did incorrect. No, you are perfect. So somewhere the tools will do that, but you have to separate yourself and get a non-judgmental view. So honestly, you can exercise the tools from it, but Claude or ChatGPT will only give you the tools which are which has worked for others. But what works for you is something that you'll figure out with a lot of deep inner work, without AI, without your smartphones, just with you, sitting with yourself. So I'm a firm believer of using AI. I use it myself, but I use it with caution because what works with me is not something that will work with Smita because both of us had different conditioning growing up. We grew up thinking differently about ourselves and our environments. So therefore, our tools also are going to be very different. So when people ask about self-coaching tools, of course there are tools available, but I always recommend that find your own tools. What really works for you. That's something which is a real um, mighty benefit of self-coaching where you really know what will work for you.
And I would like to just share that at the start, when I was just sharing that toxic boss story, and one thing that was my learning that at that time I didn't have the second question. But now the tool that I rely on is on questions. There's a very beautiful book by Hal Gregerson, which is called Questions Are the Answers. And through that, the power of questions, I think, it's got the power to find the next step, the next move. Of course, all of that we spoke earlier about awareness and anchor and, allowing and actions, all of that. But to back all of that is really about asking ourselves the right questions.
Yeah.
And keep asking till you really
Yes.
get to where we want to reach to.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I think it will be tough to explain to non-Indians, but for Indians, it's like I don't know how many of you remember Kunji, right? When we were growing up, Kunji used to be the answer key. So the book used to be there, and towards the end, there used to be answer key for each of the questions. I feel how you're feeling, the answer key is in these questions, which you can frame for yourself and ask in the moments when you're feeling unwell or when you're not feeling your best. I think the answer key you only develop for yourself when you are able to ask yourself these questions.
Absolutely. And that's your unique answer key.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us through as we were reflecting on this topic of self-coaching. As we, say our goodbyes, maybe just one an awareness or a reflection for you to think, what is that one pattern in you that you would feel, or you already are feeling the need to self-coach? It's called Questions Are the Answers by Hal Gregerson.
Smita, I think, do we have time to take questions?
We don't. Is somebody asking any question? We don't have the time. We're just,
Yes, sure.
yes. Okay, maybe some reflections on the chat, and then
Yes.
we are towards our end of our time today.
Our favorite question, like even in the self-coaching, this is one question, Smita, that I ask myself before getting up from that chair. If I have journaled for half an hour or 1 hour, what is the one thing that I am taking away from my own session today? Similarly, for the audience here, what is the one thing that you're taking away for yourself?
Thank you. Thank you, Romy. Right? Maybe, you can reflect on this in your time,
Yes.
and I will see you all next week. Okay, we have some responses there. Thank you so much.
Yes. It needs to be part of the routine, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night, good day, and see you all next month. Bye. Thank you so much, Romy. It was
Everyone.
such a wonderful
you.
conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. See you. Thanks,
Bye.
Smita. Thanks, Yamini. Bye.
Thank you, Yamini.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, Romy. Thanks, Smita. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.